As the famous saying goes, it's easier to imagine the end of the world than it is to imagine the end of capitalism. What this illustrates is the crucial importance of imagination in politics. Political failure is at heart a failure of imagination, and to trigger the imagination, we need narrative. This isn't just a frippery, this isn't just saying, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have a new political restoration story? We've got to have one. Otherwise, that vacuum will be occupied by the darkest imaginable political forces. Even Donald Trump understood quite well, actually, the power of narrative. I mean, his story was a pretty shallow one, but it was still powerful and effective. He had his villain, who is Hillary Clinton, he had his hero, who was himself, and the hero of the story was going to overthrow the villain of the story and restore order to the land. It was very clear that he was following that narrative structure, and he was able to use his rather grey version of the restoration story because nothing better was on offer. What was Hillary offering? She wasn't offering a new story at all. We think we can win people over by having the right leader or the right slogans or the right facts and figures, but actually it's the story that counts. Because we are creatures of narrative. That's the way we interpret the world. We can't actually process all the data that's coming at us. There's just far too much. So we use a shortcut, and that shortcut is a story. Now, it's not just any old story that works in politics. It's the restoration story. It's the Lord of the Rings story. It's the Narnia story. It's the Bible story. It's the story we've heard again and again and again. If you look at the past 70, 80 years, the two big political narratives that have dominated during that time, Keynesian social democracy and neoliberalism, they use exactly the same narrative structure. Keynesianism, social democracy, the story goes like this. Disorder afflicts the land, caused by the powerful and nefarious forces of the economic elite. Capturing all the wealth of society for themselves, they deprived the rest of society of its wealth, creating crises of debt and unemployment, which came together and exploded in the form of the Great Depression. But the hero of the story, the enabling state, will confront those powerful and nefarious forces, and by taxing their ill-gotten gains, and by redistributing that money through a strong social safety net and spending it back into the economy as public spending, it will generate employment, spread wealth, encourage consumer power, and that in turn will lead to the end of the economic crisis and restore order to the land. That works tremendously well until the late 1970s, then starts to run into trouble. The neoliberals then come forward with their story. Their story goes as follows. Disorder afflicts the land, caused by the powerful and nefarious forces of the collectivizing state, which, through taxing the rich, regulating them, and distributing their wealth to other people, has crushed entrepreneurship, freedom, opportunity, and individualism, and is pushing us towards collectivism that will inevitably result in tyranny. But the hero of the story, the freedom-seeking entrepreneur, will carve out a space called the market, and in doing so, will bring back freedom, opportunity, and individualism, thereby restoring order to the land. 2008, the neoliberal story falls apart spectacularly, implodes. Everything it claimed to stand for turns out to be false, causing crises, not just financial, but social, political, environmental, all the way down the line. And so the opponents of neoliberalism come forward, and their new restoration story is, oh, we don't have one. There isn't one. We have failed to produce a new restoration story because we've failed to understand that it is absolutely fundamental to an effective politics. Result, we're stuck with neoliberalism. One of the great failures of politics, particularly of the politics which tries to confront neoliberalism, tries to confront capitalism and the turboed accumulation of wealth by the very rich, is it tends to be very reactive. Fighting the bad stuff is not enough. It doesn't actually take you anywhere unless at the same time you're proposing a vision of the good stuff. What we need to do, I believe, is to produce a new restoration story of our own. And my sort of provisional restoration story goes something like this. Disorder afflicts the land, caused by the powerful and nefarious forces of neoliberalism, who, by setting us apart, by atomizing society, by alienating us from our labour, from each other, from ourselves, from the natural world, have created a society of loneliness, which is devastating to our political health, our social health, and our mental health. But we, the heroes of the story, by coming together, by creating effective, generous, inclusive communities, can build a politics of belonging, a politics which belongs to the people and to which the people belong, where we reclaim political and economic power that's been taken from us, and in doing so, restore order to the land. The story is here to be told. I think I've sketched out the rudiments of this story in Out of the Wreckage. And it's not just a theoretical thing. There are example after example of wonderful ways in which people are already living this story. There's been such brilliant social entrepreneurial work done by people creating active, engaged, generous, inclusive and powerful communities, by people taking back political power, taking back economic power. We need to accelerate that, we need to consolidate that, we need to frame it clearly within the restoration narrative, but it's right there and ready to be done. Already we can see ways in which the stories that people are living light a path to a better world. Now we have to make sure that this is brought together in a coherent and simple restoration story that anybody can grasp.